No, like I
Excuse me, everyone. There's an announcement. The announcement is we're already ending academy. Next week is your last week of academy. So next week modules are due too. So please turn them in on time. If you haven't finished them yet or haven't started them yet, please start as soon as possible so you can turn them in. And if you have any pending makeups, please contact program administration as soon as possible. Laredo would contact Yara or here, and Brownsville contacts Marta or Almarche. And that's about it.
Hey, what, if we pay for it yesterday, is it already open for us or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you got
Nice, Joe.
Good afternoon or good evening. I give you a lot of credit for being here on a Friday. And I wasn't aware you're at the tail end of A-Step, which is pretty good. I commend you for being here, and I'll try to make it as interesting as possible with the presentation on dyslexia. The first thing I'd like to do is just talk to you a little bit about who I am. My name is Betty Daniels. I'm a certified academic language therapist and a certified dyslexia therapist. I've been in the I've worked with BISD for over 25 years, but my passion has always been in dyslexia. I'm a parent of two boys that were identified in first grade. Now they're grown men and very, very successful. So I'm a proud parent of kids with dyslexia, but I'm determined to make a difference when it comes to education. When my kids were identified, it became my personal mission to make sure that all kids that were identified with dyslexia have that equal opportunity, and that's what I'm doing now. So I go and I supervise I work in the dyslexia department, and I supervise our teachers to make sure that they're providing the instructional components that are required by the state of Texas, and also that they're implementing it with fidelity and the efficacy of the program is being done, and accommodations, so that way they can be successful. Well, with that in mind, I know that I'm here for a reason. Now there's legislative action, which means that this is our dyslexia handbook. And for all dyslexia teachers, this is like our Bible. We carry this with us everywhere because in the state of Texas, there is a dyslexia law, and it tells us exactly what we have to do and what we're not supposed to do. So we carry this around and we make sure that we obey the law of Texas. It was revised in 2014. There are some new legislative action that has taken place. This coming school year, there's a new House bill that came out, which is called House Bill 1886. When I did my presentation and I sent it over to A-Step, this House bill came afterwards, so I couldn't include it in here, but I want to brief you over it. Because we know that dyslexia, people with dyslexia is identified, there's 1 in 5. Latest research says it may be 1 in 3, but we don't have all that data yet. But it's coming. Because of this, the state of Texas is saying now, Texas, you have to identify these students very early, at the very beginning, which means by kinder and in first grade at the end of the year, we're gonna have to collect data to be able to determine if a dyslexia evaluation is necessary. So that's what House Bill 1886 is saying now. It's telling us that all kinder and first grade students at the end of the year will be screened for dyslexia. Not tested, just screened. And the reason behind this is because we know that early identification is key to success. If we get these kids early in life and we identify them, and that's what I need your help. You're gonna be out there as teachers, you're educators. So you're gonna be able to see these kids. It doesn't matter whether you're in elementary, middle, high school, or post-secondary, they're there. It's 1 in 5. So with all of this knowledge, we need to be able to identify them, to give them the correct therapy that they need so they can be successful. And we'll go a little bit more over that, but I do want you to know, I wish I would have been able to put that PowerPoint in there, which I wasn't able to add the new House bill, but I do want you to understand, this will eventually also be probably updated, because there's House Bill 1886, the effective 2017-2018 school year, and there's House Bill 21 that just went into effect. And those details we still haven't gotten from the state, so we don't know exactly all the details. We know it's there, and it's a good thing. But these are what we consider laws that we have to obey in Texas. And you as educators will more than likely see these students in your classroom and have accommodations, and it tells us here exactly what we can do and what we can't do. Also, this is a guru in dyslexia that wrote this book. This is Dr. Sally Shaywitz. For us therapists, we think that she's just wonderful. She has the latest research. I highly recommend for all of you that have students with dyslexia to get an idea, read about it, understand, or for that matter, any of you that know somebody with dyslexia. And with that in mind, I'd like to see hands. How many of you know somebody with dyslexia? Good. How many of you have a family member with dyslexia? And we should be raising our hands. That means they're identified. How many of you have a child with dyslexia? And I do too. One thing I can tell you, students or children or adults that have dyslexia are brilliant. They think outside of the box. These are your entrepreneurs. These are your surgeons, your doctors, your builders, your engineers, your actors, your artists. They are, they have a cognitive ability that excels over the average intelligence. So consider dyslexia as a blessing. Are there any questions? Okay, so I'm gonna start off by going over some of your questions, and they asked me to go. I know you all already did some of the assignments that are in the Padlet, but I'm gonna go over this, I'm gonna read them, and I'd like volunteers to answer the questions. These are the questions that you all already did. So the first one, this is on the dyslexia assessment. If you all have them with you, or no? No? Okay. But you all already have completed them, correct? Okay, so I'm gonna read them, and then I'd like a volunteer if somebody can just give me the correct answer. Let's go over the first one. Number one. Amanda Gonzalez is a dyslexia teacher in elementary and wants her students to understand the hierarchy system. She introduces the student to a cooking unit and encourages them to engage in the classification activities. She brings a box full of kitchen items and places them on a table and asks the students to sort the items according to category, function, and attributes. The students are to explain and justify their findings. By assigning this task to the students, Ms. Gonzalez is providing her students with a developmentally appropriate task because A, elementary students need to socialize, B, the assignment keeps the students busy while the teacher grades tests, C, the assignment allows students to become familiar with cooking items, D, the assignment gives students the opportunity to practice categorizing. D. And it would be D. That's correct. The assignment gives students the opportunity to practice categorizing. Sorting, or going through a hierarchy of naming the functions or the attributes of any unit is really essential because students with dyslexia need to have a sequence. And we'll learn a little bit more, and we'll talk a little bit more about what's happening in the brain. But it gives the opportunity for that student to categorize. Now, we know, I'd like you to look at the number, there was a number A. Elementary students need to socialize. Now, that was not the right answer, but I do need you to understand socializing and building that vocabulary is very important for students with dyslexia. And when we go over the PowerPoint, you're gonna look at those elementary, or no, they're pre-K characteristics. And oral language is something that's very necessary, so socializing is important as well. But the correct answer was D. Number 2, Rachel Ortiz is a 5th grade teacher. She has 4 students that are scheduled to attend the dyslexia lab for 45 minutes daily. She has instructed the students on the importance of the explicit reading instruction. In order to maximize this reading intervention, Mrs. Ortiz, A, tells the students that they cannot attend the lab today due to testing. B, plays classical music and tells the students that will enhance student learning. C, makes sure the students are reading appropriate materials. D, allows the student to quietly walk out of the classroom to attend this dyslexia lab. D. It would be D. Remember what I told you about the dyslexia handbook? Dyslexia handbook tells us that all students have to have explicit instruction. That means that you have to give them 45 minutes daily of something other than what the classroom reading teacher is doing. We have to teach using a multisensory approach to learning, which means we have to tackle their pathways using manipulatives. We can't be doing the same thing that the regular classroom teacher is doing because that's not therapy. They're teaching reading, we're doing something completely different. So the law is telling us they have to come for 45 minutes. So you as an educator, you can't say, today I don't want you to go, you need to stay in here. The law is telling us, So B, I caution you to be very careful. Allow those students to just quietly walk out for 45 minutes and they will come back in. Number 3, Mike Herman teaches history in high school with students of various achievement levels. He is planning a unit on local battles and will need to use the city library for resources. As Mr. Herman prepares the unit, he determines that he wants to stimulate the students' thinking. Which type of project would encourage a higher level thinking by the student? A, discuss the influence of the past on the present community, then ask students to project what will happen in the future. B, give students questions to use to interview older members of the community and publish them in booklets. C, use archived newspapers to collect data, then draw a timeline that includes the major battles. D, give students a list of the local battles, dates, names, and have them display the information on a poster board. A. Who said A? Very good. Why A? What is A doing, getting this child to do?
It's asking them to for the future.
Exactly. Predict, hypothesize, inference. Those are all the areas of weakness across the board for many kids, but for a lot of our students is the same thing. So you have to think outside of the box. The others is easy. We can get data, right? We can go on Google and say, okay, the battle of this or the battle of that, and put a collage together. We can do a timeline. How many timelines are out there? Numerous. But we can't get them to hypothesize. Those are those higher order thinking skills which tackle the Bloom's taxonomy. Good job, that's correct. Number 4, Fred Parker is a middle school teacher with at-risk students. He assigns the class a research paper on the importance of technology. They design a questionnaire and distribute it to other classmates. The students will analyze the data and write a research paper reflecting the findings. By making this requirement, Mr. Parker is demonstrating his ability to A, stir students' interest in technology, B, integrate technology into its course assignments, C, require students to learn new software, D, increase the amount of research assignments.
B.
B is correct. Integrate technology into the course assignments. This book has 3 legislative actions, and one is that, technology. By law, all students with dyslexia have to have technology incorporated into their daily learning. So we have to integrate. And why not? Would all kids benefit? Sure. Technology is what we have to, what's the latest out there, the best research. We need to incorporate that as well. Number 5, once 6 weeks have passed and Angie Keller is preparing to submit grades and parents conference requests, to submit grades and parent conference requests request forms for her dyslexic student. The majority of the students have improved significantly in reading comprehension, but half the class is still struggling in written composition. Ms. Keller has concluded that her students are having difficulties assessing their own weaknesses and strengths in writing. Which of the following would not be an appropriate way of improving the student's writing? A, have students submit a daily composition on their favorite topic of for a grade. B, read a quality written composition weekly. C, collect all drafts and final copies in a portfolio from which the student can discuss with the teacher. D, have the students identify the areas of weakness in their writing that they feel needs improvement. Which would not? A, and that's correct. What happens in the regular classroom? Teachers have a daily journal, and the kids will just write on whatever they want at times. How beneficial is that? Maybe not a lot. Shouldn't a teacher model and tell them, well, this is what I want? Maybe collect the data into a portfolio and tell them, look, maybe you could have improved here. And maybe explain going from a simple to a complex sentence. If a teacher doesn't model, if we can't tell a student what is wrong with their writing, they're never going to see it. We see this a lot in the classroom. They have journal writing, and I'll ask the teacher, well, did you check? They go, oh, no. We'll check them later. And I go, no, why? Why are you doing this every day? Check to see what the child is saying, what the student is saying. Ask how he can improve. Did you look for punctuations? Did you try to maybe bring in some other parts of speech? Did you tackle prepositional phrases? Did you tackle going from simple to complex? Written composition is one of the areas of weakness for all students, not just with dyslexia. So if we know that they're weaknesses, we need to make sure that we as teachers are giving them positive feedback. Even if it's critical feedback, but constructive. We have to tell them where they went wrong. I think there were just 5 questions, correct? Yes? Are there any questions on these? No? Okay, let's keep going. Also, you all had some assignments. The first assignment one was watching Embracing Dyslexia. How many of you were able to watch the Embracing with Dyslexia? Yes? I was hearing that some of the
not
that one.
No.
Okay, and I didn't know of these links. And we had other links. I had other ones for my other group before, but they closed them down, and those were difficult to open. So Embracing Dyslexia is an excellent video to watch, just to give you a little bit of an idea of what dyslexic students go through. So the first question: answer the questions based on the video. True or false? Dyslexic students can't learn to read.
False.
Good, it's false. Number 2, dyslexic students have strengths and weaknesses. True. We call our kids with dyslexia valley and peaks. They go up and down and up and down and up and down. That's that unexpectedness. Those are the kids that will puzzle you, because one day maybe they're going to get 100, and then another day they're going to get a 50. And then they're going to get maybe a 90, and all of a sudden they go down to a 60. And we as educators think, good grief, what's happening? I don't understand it. That's that unexpectedness, so they go up and down. Number 3, dyslexic individuals can't think outside of the box. False. And we see that. We see numerous famous dyslexic people. We know that they do think outside of the box. Number 4, dyslexic students need explicit instruction. True. If you give a child with dyslexia a handout and you tell them, okay, I want you to do your work, they're not going to do it. That was not explicit instruction. You did not model and tell them exactly what's expected. You did not guide them. That's what explicit instruction is. You can't do that with students with dyslexia, because they won't know what to do, and they probably won't even turn in an assignment. Number 5, dyslexic students compensate in the classroom.
True.
It's true. And I'm telling you this as experience. My youngest son was identified in 1st grade. Both of my boys won. One was at the beginning of 1st, one at the end of 1st grade. But he was able to compensate. His teacher didn't even know that, she didn't even understand any of the characteristics of dyslexia. She said, oh no, he's doing terrific. He had got 100 on his spelling, 100 on this, 100 on reading. And I thought, are you sure? I already had my oldest son identified. She goes, oh yeah, don't worry, Miss Daniels, he's doing fine. I go, okay. And I thought, there's something wrong. He fooled her. He was very dyslexic, but he had memorized everything. He had his own strategies and his own patterns. He butchered his passages and was able to get the answers. He didn't read it, but he got his answers. So was he able to compensate? Sure he was. A lot of our kids still do that. Are there any questions on your assignment 1? Okay, let's go ahead and go to assignment 2. The Yale Center for Dyslexia and Creativity, this is Sally Shaywitz. This is who I was just telling you about the book. That's her website. This website is an excellent website that's going to give you the latest research on dyslexia. That's why I had you read that article. So I hope you enjoyed it. Let's go to the question, number 1. Dyslexia is referred to as a phonological deficit hypothesis. True or false?
True.
True. Dyslexia stems from a phonological deficiency. That means that they struggle with the decoding, with the letter recognition, with a segmenting, with syllabication, with being able to hear the syllables. That's where dyslexia is stemming from. So yes, it is a phonological deficit. Number 2, brain activation patterns do not differ in men or women.
False.
True or false? False. And another thing, dyslexic brains are very different than a person that doesn't have dyslexia. Number 3, syntax is the grammatical structure of how language is processed. True or false?
True.
True. We know that syntax has to do, we're going to do an activity with the syntax, which has to do with the mechanics of writing. They need to know that. That's going to affect that written composition. Number 4, in 1896, developmental dyslexia was described by W. Pringle Morgan.
True.
It's true. And this is a really good article. Way back before they called it dyslexia, they called it word blindness. They didn't understand it. They said, what's going on? They studied they studied a little boy and they said, what's wrong? He comes from an influential family. He travels all over, but he can't read. They called it congenital blindness, word blindness, strephosybolia, which meant twisted letters. And then now it's called dyslexia. It's the same thing. But they knew something was going on. They didn't understand it, but they knew something was different. Number 5, how many phonemes make up the English language? 44. Wow. So if we know that there's 44 phonemes that make up the English language, do you think that our kids are going to struggle? They might. So that's where we come and play. If they're identified early and we teach them teaching them explicitly, using it in a systematic format, our students are going to learn. Are there any questions with this one? Let's go to our 3rd assignment. This had to do with dyslexia and the brain. What does current research tell us? Number 1, dyslexia is neurobiological in origin. True. You're born with it. It has to do with the processing of the brain. We know that students with dyslexia use the right part of the brain for everything. By the time it goes from the right part of the brain down to the left part of the brain, down onto paper, it takes twice as long. You're born with it. We know it's hereditary. Do we know what causes it? Number 2, more girls are identified with dyslexia than boys.
False.
False. And this is it's probably been 7 or 10 years. This just changed. It used to be everybody believed that it was true. Girls were identified. Boys were identified more than girls. And why? Was because the boys were always acting out and being the class clown and hitting and getting in trouble. So the teacher identified this, that something's wrong with this kid. He's the one that's bullying and the clown and is causing problems. And the girls were quiet, submissive. They kind of fell through the cracks. But we know now research says it's equal. There's just as many boys as many girls that are being identified. Number 3, it is vital to begin using screening and progress monitoring procedures early.
True.
True. Remember that I just told you about House Bill 1886? Even before this bill came out, we knew that if kids were not screened at an early age, they were not going to be successful. Or the gap was going to be growing wider and wider. Currently, right now, in our department, we're identifying students in middle and in high school. And it's a good thing that we identified them. But what happened? Those kids are born with dyslexia. Why weren't they spotted in elementary? And we can trace back and we can know what teacher, what campus, and we go all the way back and we know what happened, what went wrong here. The data was there to say, hey, dyslexia is a possibility. But there was nothing that was done. So we as educators fail our own students. That's why House Bill 1886 is saying no more Texas. You will identify these kids from kinder and first. So that way they have that equal opportunity to go all the way to post-secondary. Number 4, true or false? Dyslexia only affects English.
It's false.
That's false. We know that it's in all languages. The only difference is the assessments or the formal assessments to test for dyslexia are different in Spanish than they are in English. And I only say Spanish, there's other languages because of our area where we live in. When it comes to Spanish, remember it's very transparent, it's very phonetic. So the kids are going to be able to speak well, but they're not going to be able to have that automaticity with rapid naming. So the assessments are different, but dyslexia exists in all languages. Number 5, dyslexia interventions consist of how many levels?
6.
There were 6 levels that they consist of. Are there any questions on this one? Yes,
I
ma'am.
had a question regarding the dyslexia testing.
Yes, ma'am.
If for a bilingual child, do you test both languages
Yes,
or
ma'am.
primary
No,
language?
and that's a good question. The law is telling us that we have to establish an assessment in their primary language and their secondary language. So those kids will have 2 tests that will be done. And usually you'll find the similarities in both of your formal assessments, which takes a little bit longer, but you have a panoramic view of the weaknesses and the strength of the child in both languages, which is good. Are there any other questions? Yes,
In
sir.
the bill you mentioned, is the screening mandatory?
It's mandatory by law.
And-
And yes, you have to do it. There's no more, well, how are we going to do it? Now, TEA in the state is not going to come and say, this is what you're going to do. They gave you ideas. Here in Brownsville for BISD, we're using TPRI and Tejasle. Those descriptors that are needed to be able to do the formal testing, they're there already. That's not a formal testing, that's a universal screener. But we can grab that data and say, hey, here are the flags for dyslexia as of kinder. Now, there's other areas like up in the East Coast. We don't have all of those facilities here or all of that technology here, unfortunately. But they can spot students since 2 years old that have dyslexia just by the brain. The brain's different. It activates differently. So yes, but the state is saying it's mandatory how to do, to be able to screen. Now, that's not a formal evaluation, but it's a screener.
Is it most common when it comes from family?
It's hereditary. And it'll skip.
I was
I have
saying, 'cause-
I know families that it's one sibling, but not the middle sibling, and maybe it's the younger and the older sibling. So it skips. In my experience, it was both of my sons, and I saw it from very little. I started noticing some.
You're not dyslexic, but you are.
never formally diagnosed.
Right.
But I will tell you, my kids always tell me that I am. And I realize now when I used to when I was in college and in high school, the way I used to learn. I did my own patterns. I did my own mnemonics. But I just didn't, no one ever told me anything.
Right.
But I got very good grades. But I remember having to go home and staying up till 12 or 1 to get those grades. They didn't come easy. I had a sister that didn't even study, and she was always a top student, always A's. So whether it's coming from me, their dad, we don't know, because back then we really didn't have a whole awareness
I was gonna
of
say, is it more
dyslexia.
common now to have more students in dyslexia than before?
Oh, yes. And I think there's more in awareness. Like, for example, having this course that I have to be here, that I want to be here to expose you all to, this is a great awareness. And we have our conferences. In fact, on October the 14th, which is next Saturday, we have our dyslexia conference. We've had dyslexia conferences here in Brownsville for numerous years to expose the community and educators that dyslexia is here, and everybody needs to be aware of it. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Did you ask something?
No, I know what you mean because I have dyslexia, and my brother that's in the middle that has dyslexia.
Yes.
I struggled through my elementary, I struggled through my junior, but back then they never screened anybody.
No, we've come a long way.
And I
We
think
really
people-
have.
It's practice, a lot of practice, and you tend to memorize a lot
yeah.
of stuff.
Because they say that back then they thought it was just where they flipped the letter.
There was
you know,
reversals
first.
of letters,
Yes.
and that's something that it's not.
It's
now,
not.
Now you can do transposing, say the word no to on, that's transposing a word, but not the reversal of letters. That's a myth. It's not like that. Eventually that goes away because of you're teaching the children how to, or you're teaching somebody how to write the word, the letter formation correctly. Yes, ma'am.
What is normally the error margin for the screenings or
what?
the error margin for the screening or the testing of dyslexia, especially here in the valley that we have a lot of people coming in from different
Yes.
areas?
Yes, I will tell you, with the screener, we don't know, this will be the first year, we'll get that data at the end of the year, okay? But when it comes to testing, we have a high ratio that are identified here. I'm really proud of our department, because we have an outstanding department when it comes to dyslexia. And we've been able to recognize who has dyslexia. I think right now, we're at identifying, I just ran it's probably like 2,300 kids that we have in BISD that we've identified, which is not as big as it should be, but we're growing and we're growing, so we're identifying. Now, we do have students that do not qualify. It's a D&Q rate as well. Those students that are coming in, say from Mexico, we had a big fluctuation that came in from Mexico. And within 2 or 3 months, the teachers were referring because they couldn't read. But that wasn't the problem. It wasn't dyslexia. It was a language barrier. Should they have taught those children in their native language and built that foundation? Sure. And do the transition? But we've gotten away from that. So we're trying to establish more awareness of what dyslexia is in either language. They didn't qualify in Spanish and they didn't qualify in English. So if they're not qualifying, that means that it had to do with a language barrier. They should have been taught in their native language. They should have been taught in Spanish until they were able to transition into English. And then we wouldn't have had those D and Qs that did not qualify. Are there any other questions on that one? No? Okay, let's go. I think the final one is number 4. Okay? This had to do with transitioning from high school to college, and I spoke to one of the gentlemen here earlier about this, and this is a really good article because it talks about kids that are going from secondary to post-secondary. It's very critical. And I'm telling you this as experience. I know not all universities are going to honor accommodations, but now that there's more of an awareness and we have more laws, they have to. So this is the first question. True or false? All colleges automatically grant high school accommodations. False. So what do we have to do? If you're dyslexic, you're always dyslexic, right? It's not going to go away. You can have, and we're very fortunate here with UTRGV and TSC, and we work closely with them. They honor our evaluations, which they should. Now, it doesn't mean that all colleges will, but it does mean that if you're dyslexic and you have accommodations, they have to honor the accommodations. Does it mean that you might have to pay to get a new an evaluation done? Yes. And that's unfortunate because I know at the state, at the state level, they're fighting about that, saying, why? We know that you're born that way, it should follow you all the way through. You shouldn't have to have a reevaluation and a reevaluation. But not all colleges are going to honor your accommodations. But they will honor that you're dyslexic as long as you have an updated evaluation. Number 2, developing self-advocacy skills is highly recommended for college students. True or false? True. And this is something I used to tell my son. I remember one year, my youngest son was at U of H and it was his first year. And I was at work and he called me and he was upset and he said, I'm gonna quit. I don't want to be here anymore. I hate it here. I can't keep up with my note taking. It's just too much. And he was in an auditorium. He said it was like 100 kids, right? And he couldn't keep up. It was a math, something with equations. And I told him, Alex, you can't. He goes, no, Mom, you just don't understand. He said, it's just too much. Well, what I did, now technology, remember you have to incorporate technology. There's a little pin and it looks just like a normal pin. It's called a smart pin. Have any of you heard of that? Yeah. That's what I got my son. I got both of them. That. Well, he went in and it's got a special little paper and it's got little 3 dots down here on those pads. And it's a little pin and you push it down and it records all of these equations, all of his lectures because he couldn't keep up. So then when he went back to the dorm, he would go into the dorm and he was able to hear all of his notes. The newer ones now, you put them in and all your notes come out on your laptop. So you can go back and study. Now he could keep up with his notes. Before he couldn't keep up. All those gadgets helped both of my kids get through college. And then I asked him, he goes, Mom, I realized lots of kids have them. I go, really? He goes, I never knew. Now that I have one, they have them. Is it cheating? No. It's just being an equal opportunity of being able to be successful and keeping up with your notes. Number 3. With advanced planning, a capable student can have a bright future. True or false? True. If you have children that have dyslexia, keep supporting them as much as you can. Keep praising them. Number 4, when is the best time to start planning the transition?
14 to 16.
14, yes, as soon as they're in junior high. We have a lot of kids that are we try to promote this because a lot of our kids will say, I don't want to go, I don't think I can do it, I can't keep up. So we keep promoting and getting their self-esteem up there, but also for them to be self-advocates. So they can say, hey, I can do this, and if I need help, raise your hand and ask questions. Don't just sit there and not ask anything. And number 5, what services are typically available at college?
I found structured programs, coordinated services, and services.
That's correct. Structured programs or coordinated services. Now, some may be at a cost and some may be free at the college level as well. Of course, being advocates, they can go and ask to see if there's anything that's available to help them. Are there any questions? So I'm going to give you, just with what you've heard, I'm going to give you just a quick little quiz here. And I want you just to tell me true or false. Children can outgrow dyslexia, true or false? False. We know dyslexia will always be with you. 2, Dyslexia is an eye problem. Visual training, colored overlays, and colored lenses will be beneficial treatments for dyslexia. False, very good. I had somebody, which is a big politician, I went to a function, and somebody said, oh, my nephew had dyslexia. And I said, oh, really? And I was about to talk about, what are they doing? What kind of curriculum? And she said, oh no, they're putting some patches on their eye, and they're just doing eye exercises, and it's gone. I said, oh, okay. And I thought, what in the world? We have had so much information out there. This is a well-educated person. And I walked out of there and I said, we have more work to do. We have a lot more work to do. It doesn't go away, guys. There's no eye patches or a pill that you're gonna take and it goes away. That's not so. Number 3, children who write letters backwards or reverse letters are dyslexic. True or false?
False.
It's correct, it's false. Number 4, more boys than girls are dyslexic. False. We just talked about that, right? No, it's equal. Number 5, individuals with above average intelligence cannot be dyslexic.
False.
False. An average intelligence is at 90. Students with dyslexia have an intelligence above 90. We know that they have that cognitive ability. They're super smart. The problem is the reading. Number 6, dyslexia is a relatively new problem. It's been around since the 1800s. They've called it so many different things, but bottom line, it's dyslexia. It's been around for a very long time. Number 7, the brain of a dyslexic individual is different from those individuals with no reading impairment. True. And here in Sally Shaywitz's book, she calls them, both hemispheres are enlarged. She says that they're mirror images. So they're always going 24/7. That's why you're thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking. That's what a brain with dyslexia looks like. Number 8, dyslexia runs in families. True or false? True. It's hereditary. Number 9, excuse me. Most reading problems are caused by difficulty in reading comprehension. Think of that one. What do we know about dyslexia? Does it have to do with reading comprehension? So it's false. There is some areas now, reading comprehension, our kids will probably do really good with reading comprehension. They're not going to read everything. They're going to use their context clues, they're going to use pictures, they're going to use keywords, and they're going to get the right answer. But did they read the passage? Probably not. Are they going to be able to pass and excel? Oh yeah, they are. They compensate. Number 10, an individual can be dyslexic and have attention deficit disorder. True or false? True. Now, they're both comorbid. That means one doesn't cause the other. They don't cause each other, but we know that they do coexist. Okay? Are there any questions on this? One is, what about the Laredo? Are there any questions on this? No? Okay. Let's go ahead and start then with our. Okay. Do I turn this on? Did it go to sleep?
Yeah.
Okay, what do I do?
It's just personal. It will take some time to start.
Okay, right? Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about dealing with dyslexia. And I always show this picture. Which of these people is dyslexic?
All of them.
We have Cher, Steve Jobs, Walt Disney, Henry Ford, Whoopi, Jay Leno. do you think? It's all of them. And we do this on purpose. I always like to put different pictures because, as you can see, it affects all walks of life, all nationalities, all genders. Doesn't matter. I used to have a picture of who's the guy that became a woman?
Oh.
Jenner. He's dyslexic. I had it, but I took it off because I didn't know whether to put the guy or the
Oh,
girl.
so I removed it.
But anyhow, that's he's dyslexic. So these are all famous, and he's famous. So lots of people are famous. People have dyslexia. So what is dyslexia? This all comes from our dyslexia handbook. And it tells us it's constitutional in origin. It means you're born with it. It's manifested by learning to read, write, and spell. That's where the problem is for students with dyslexia. Despite conventional instruction, adequate intelligence, and sociocultural opportunities. We know as many as one people have dyslexia, and it comes from the Greek language, it means poor language. We know that research knows that dyslexia is a language-based learning disability. People with dyslexia learn, they just learn in a different way. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to pass around a handout. And I want all of you to get a little bit of an idea of what it feels like to have dyslexia. Everybody will need a writing tool, a pencil, a pen. No, I will tell you right now. And I'd like everybody to lift up their dominant hand, the hand that you always use to write with. And I'd like you to put your writing tool in your non-dominant hand. And you're going to use your non-dominant hand for all these activities, not your dominant hand. The hand that you normally don't use, okay? So the first thing I want you to do, we're going to look at the top. And it says, make the designs below with your neatest and quickest skill. You may begin. Go, go, go. Oh my goodness. Stay in the box. This is for a grade. Make sure you stay, you hold your pen correctly or your pencil correctly. Go, go, go. Keep going. Go ahead and stop. How many of you had no difficulty with this task? Raise your hand. How many of you struggled with the grip? How many of you struggled to stay in the box? How many of you struggled to copy that figure onto that little area? Raise your hand. Our students with dyslexia feel that way. If a teacher asks them that they have to copy a paper from one side or copy notes from a book to their paper, or if they tell them you have to have the best handwriting possible and stay in the box, your neatest handwriting. Students with dyslexia don't have good handwriting. But one of the components in our therapy that we give them is to teach them the correct letter formation, the proper grip, how they can make progress with copying from one from the book to the paper, or even using a Scantron. Sometimes they're given tasks and they have to bubble, but they have to go from here to one side. So accommodations are needed to give that equal opportunity for our students. So just think that this is the way they feel every time they have to do an assignment that's asking for some kind of copying or writing. Let's go to the next one, please. It says, put a dot in as many of the squares as you can in 5 seconds. Go, go, go. Go, go, go. Stop. How many of you put a dot only in the squares? Raise your hand. Oh, good. How many of you put a dot in all the shapes? Raise your hand. Good. Students with dyslexia do not like to be timed. Remember that I told you it's a processing of the brain? The only thing that they heard was they have 5 seconds to turn in an assignment to you. That's all. They don't even know what they have to do. They didn't listen to the directions. They just know they've got to do it in 5 seconds, so they better turn it in. What if I would have said, or given you a little bit of extra time and given you maybe another 5 seconds? Could you maybe have completed it? Extra time. Students with dyslexia benefit from extra time that allows them to be able to process a little bit longer and retrieve whatever it is that they have to turn in for the teacher. And that's beneficial for students with dyslexia. Let's go to the next one. It says, please write the manuscript alphabet, then write the cursive alphabet. You may begin.
Uppercase or lowercase?
However, manuscript and cursive. Go, go, go. Stay in the line.
What's after G?
Hold your pencil correctly. Remember to make your letters correctly, legible, readable. Keep going, keep going. Go, go, go. Go, go, go. Let's start now with our cursive. Go. Go, go, go. Oh, we have somebody already that finished. Let's go. Keep going. We're running out of time. Got 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Stop. Ooh, I did pretty good. How many of you were able to do this task with no difficulties? Raise your hand. How many of you struggled? I saw somebody that finished. How many of you struggled? How many of you forgot your ABCs? Raise your hand.
I forgot writing cursive.
Okay, and that's another thing. How many of you were able to write in cursive? Raise your hand. How many of you found it easier in cursive versus manuscript? Raise your hand. Ah. How many of you found it easier with manuscript and cursive? Raise your hand. Wow. This is the first. Cursive for our students with dyslexia is easier than manuscript. Why? Because you don't take your pencil off the paper.
So how is it now that they don't teach cursive?
And that's another thing. Now they don't teach cursive, which they should teach cursive. When we have our students identified with dyslexia and they come into for therapy, there is one of the components is handwriting, and we tackle it maybe for 3 or 4 minutes. That component that we tackle is cursive. Why? Because the kids don't have to take their pencil off the paper. The flow is easier and less reversals there. Now, the students are also going to benefit with cursive because it's easier on the wrist. And now we know that a lot of students can't even do cursive. We even have adults that don't even know cursive, right? Because we've gotten away with it, gotten away from it. So it's good for us to be able to come back. Also, our students, when they're writing their ABCs, will forget, and they'll have to start, they'll say A, B, C, D, O, A, B, C, D, E, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Those are our students with dyslexia. So what do we have to do? We have to make sure that they have established that alphabetical principle, which means they know the letters of the alphabet. Letter recognition is really important. And we're going to go over that in just a little bit once we start doing the activities. These are things, easy things that we can do as educators to be able to refresh their thinking, excuse me, or be able to tackle that area of weakness, which is the alphabet. Let's go to the next one. Now, here it says, trace the design as you count from 975 to 1032 out loud using your non-dominant hand. Ready, go. 975, 976, 977, 978, 979, 980, 981, 982, louder. 983, go, go, go. 985, 996, 997, 998, go, go, go. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, go, go, go. When you're done, pencils down. Go, go, go. Keep going till you're done. 13. Keep going. Okay, let's go ahead and stop. How many of you were bothered by all the talking that was going around? Raise your hand. How many of you weren't bothered? The noise didn't bother you?
Wow.
How many of you were pressing down on that grip, trying to stay and trace? Students with dyslexia have a very high listening comp. That's how they learn. They don't learn by reading. They're learning by listening to everything that's happening, the lectures that are happening, what's going on over here, what's going on over there. So when you have a child with dyslexia and you have a lot of noise, you've lost your student. Your student is not going to be hearing and paying attention. They're listening to everybody else, and that noise is bothering them because they have a high listening comp. What we want is to have a conducive environment, small groups, not so much noise that's going on so they can concentrate and they're not listening to everything around them. Also, when you have a student with all that noise, because they have that listening comp, the best place to sit a student with dyslexia is in the front. If you sit a student with dyslexia in the back of your room, you're going to lose them. Why? Because they have a high listening comp and they're easily distracted. So they're looking at everything. They're looking at the teacher on the computer. They're looking at their neighbor over here. They're looking at everything. But they're not doing their work. So if you sit them close to the source of information by you as a teacher, you can keep an eye on them. Or you can knock on their desk and say, hey, do you understand? You're checking for understanding. Ask them to repeat the assignment. Now you're tackling their areas of weakness. And no more. Whatever's going on behind them, they don't need to know. They just need to focus on the instruction in front of you. Let's do the last one. Now it says, and also we're still using our non-dominant hand. This is a sample of a name written in manuscribble. Please learn to write it from memory. And when you are ready, turn your paper over and write it. No tracing. Just look at the word, your manuscript, I want you to turn your paper and I want you to write it.
With offhand or?
With your non-dominant hand. Go, go, go. This is for a grade. No flipping. You can't flip back and forward. You have no tracing. Look at it. And then turn your paper over and write it. No tracing. And go. This is a grade. It's Friday. So we need a grade. Go, go, go. Using your non-dominant hand.
Sorry for that.
Go, go, go. And when you're done, pencils down.
Right on.
Go ahead and stop. How many of you had no difficulty with this and were able to get the manuscript? Raise your hand. How many of you struggled with this task? Raise your hand. That's exactly how our students with dyslexia feel when they're having to do a spelling test. They look at these words and they're foreign. When you all looked at that, I saw your eyes, you looked puzzled, like what in the world is this? That's how they feel. Dyslexia stems from an area of weakness of decoding and encoding, and this is spelling. Here it is. So what do our students do? The teacher gives them an assignment on Monday and she gives them maybe 15 or 20 words and they think, oh. So what does mom do when they get home? She probably has them write them 5 times on Monday, 10 times on Tuesday, maybe 20 times on Thursday, and so on. By Friday, our students have memorized them. So they're going to take the test and boom, they're going to pass. But Monday rolls around, do you think they know how to spell that word? No, it's gone. They memorized it, that was it. So why is it important to give so many spelling words to a child? I tell the teachers, give them 10 words using an orthographic pattern. Show us a pattern in there and our students will do well. Maybe all words with final stable syllables. Maybe all words with diphthongs, right? Vowel pair syllables. But they don't. So they give them 20 words that have irregular words, nothing to follow, no patterns to learn. They're all words that they should memorize. Why can't they just use 10? That will be one of the accommodations that is beneficial for our students with dyslexia. Shorten spelling assignments because of those areas of weakness that our students have. Are there, and I'm telling you this that way, how many of you are going to be elementary teachers? Raise your hands. You're going to see this then. How many of you are in middle school? Okay. And you'll see that if you all are going to be doing a lot of research and you're going to see those words in there. The kids are not going to be able to master that. How many in high school? Okay, you've got a variety in here. You're going to be seeing our students with dyslexia. So when you're thinking of giving them a big spelling list, make sure that they're tackling a pattern, an orthographic pattern. Yes, sir?
With this new test that's coming along, is it going to be auditory?
Sometimes. You mean for testing in your classroom or testing that?
The state test that they do, STAR testing.
Wait, repeat that again. I didn't understand.
STAR testing.
Yes.
Because now they're going to computerized.
Yeah, it's online.
So is it going to be auditory?
It is. But not, remember, when it comes to dyslexia, no passage is ever read for our students. It's only the questions and the stems, the questions and the answer choices. Never a reading passage. Now, for math, it's different, right? Now you can read all of it to the student and read the question and the answer choices, but we are going online. There's a lot of advantages on online testing for our students versus paper and pencil. So yes, part of it is an auditory, but the whole reading passage will never be read to our students, even on online testing through STAR. But the question and the answer choices, yes, they will.
But isn't that still a disadvantage?
No, Because remember what we said, can our kids grab the information and get the right answer? Yes, they can. We can't allow, dyslexic students fall under 504, which is regular ed. We're not special ed. There's a difference between regular ed and special ed, which means that cognitive ability is there. We know that that intelligence is really high, so we know that our students are going to be able to do well. But they follow the same laws that any general ed student will. So we can't give them that advantage of reading the whole paragraph. Now, I wish we could, but the state is not going to allow that. They're going to allow the student to read the passage, and if needed, they'll raise their hand and say, can you read me the question and the answer choices? That they will. We haven't been able to get there yet. But what the state has given us, it's been really good. It's equal opportunity. Are there any other questions? Okay, let's keep going. Oh, yes, sir.
What does it say?
We don't know. It's a menu scribble.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let me keep going. Okay, wait, can I go back? Yes. Okay, here are some primary characteristics of dyslexia. Reading words in isolation, decoding unfamiliar words, oral reading, and difficulty in spelling. There's two areas of weakness that we look for with strengths and weaknesses, and that comes from decoding that leads to reading and encoding that leads to spelling, which spelling leads to written composition. We know that there's going to be weaknesses there, and the reading is going to lead to reading comprehension, which is our weaknesses as well. This is something that you elementary teachers or secondary teachers be cautious with. This is word attack. There's a lot of teachers, if you go in the classroom, they have words on the wall. They're called fry words, dolch words, high frequency words, and the kids, there's nothing around there where the kids can use for context clues. That's very difficult for our students because they can't attack the word. There's nothing around to give them the answer. But if you put a word wall that has patterns, maybe orthographic patterns, maybe vowel, consonant, E pattern words, right? Final stable words, maybe ZLE, PLE, GLE. Now you're giving them patterns. Now our kids are going to be able to outshine in that area, but not when you're just building wall words that are all irregular. So these are primary characteristics. Consequences, aspects of reading comprehension. We know that if the decoding is not there, are they going to be low in comprehension? If we haven't established that decoding, yes. Variable difficulty with aspects of written language, it affects written composition and limited vocabulary growth. Why? If a child is not exposed to a lot of reading, the vocabulary is going to be limited. But now you as an educator, if you expose your students to this robust vocabulary, will they grow? Definitely. Today, right before I came here, I had another training through Region 1, and it was all on oral language and the benefits of oral language regarding kids from elementary, middle, high school, and post-secondary. The only way that our students are going to build a good vocabulary is by you all. They don't get it at home. And they gave the statistics. It's very, very unusual. And students with dyslexia, you're not going to see them reading all over the place. And they're not going to be able to extract all that vocabulary. So we expose them to oral language, and that builds vocabulary. Elementary teachers, they are in pre-K. Is there going to be anybody in pre-K in here? Okay.
I'm right now in pre-K.
You're in pre-K? Okay, here you go. This is for you here. First grade teachers right now. This is where the first thing we know, these are characteristics that may be seen in your classroom. Delay in talking. These are the kids that have difficulty in rhyming. You may say a rhyme and the next day they come back and they're not hearing those sounds, or you'll give them a chant or a nursery rhyme and they're going to come back and they forgot it. They don't remember it. Also, these are the kids that have difficulty with retrieving words and new words. They're pointing. They're always pointing and pointing and pointing because they can't retrieve that word. It has to do with the processing of the brain. They have trouble naming the letters and the alphabet. They'll sing the ABC, they'll go A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But if you ask them randomly, give me this letter, oh, I don't know it. So is that important? You have to establish alphabetical principle before any child can even read. Even before sounds come in, they need to know the letters. And then you're going to join that sound. That's called sound symbol association. Now this letter makes this sound. Now kids can start putting them together and decode. If you notice, the same problematic characteristics still continue to exist in first grade. Difficulty in breaking words into smaller words, identifying syllables, remembering the names of the letters, names in the letters in their names as well, decoding single words, difficulty with spelling. Decoding and spelling and encoding are the areas of weakness. We go to second, third, and fourth, and sixth. Any second through sixth grade teachers here? No? That's middle school already, sixth grade. You'll have some sixth graders. Look at the difficulty still. Recognizing common sight words. Those are irregular words. Difficulty decoding. Decoding continues to come out because it's an area of weakness. They're connecting the speech sounds. They have difficulty. Reading fluently. These are the kids that when you call on them, they get sick. They want to go to the bathroom. Can I be excused, ma'am? Please don't call me. And if they don't want to be called, as an educator, should you be calling them and embarrassing them in front of the rest of their peers? No. There's some kids that you use little posties and they'll tell the teacher, today I feel good. Call on me. Because they gave them a heads up, they already know. So the teacher calls and they feel good. And sometimes they'll put a little posting, they say, no, don't call on me today. They're not prepared. They don't know that. So instead of making them feel embarrassed, don't call on them. Let them hear. Go to the next student. Reliance on picture clues. Oh, our kids are super good with context clues. And difficulty with written expression. This one, you will see problematic all the way through high school. Encoding, which is spelling, is one of those areas of weakness. So if a student doesn't know how to spell, do you think he's going to be able to write a good sentence? No. He's probably going to use the word big instead of maybe enormous. Can't spell. So the words that he can't spell is what he's going to write. He's going to use in his writing, but it's not going to reflect what he knows. Now, we go to the sixth grade. They still are avoiding the reading. They don't want you to call on them. They use the use of less complicated words, reliance on listening. The good thing is with all of our students with dyslexia, within BISD, we have a grant with Learning Ally, and that's a technology, a link for audio books. That helps with that listening. So all of our students can get their textbooks downloaded to their iPad, their iPhones, their laptops, and it's a portable device that allows them to be able to listen to all of their books.
What's the name of the link?
Learning Ally. And now we go to middle school, high school to post-secondary. They still have difficulty with the volume of reading. The harder, it's going to get harder. It's not going to get easier for them. So they need that support. Remember, equal opportunity, those are those accommodations that are needed. Frustration with the amount of time. These are the kids. We have parents that call our office. Those kids are staying up till 2 or 3 in the morning studying, and they're in high school. And I'll go in and I'll talk to the teacher, and I'll ask her, well, is this assignment a homework assignment? She goes, well, yeah, homework and his classwork. He didn't finish. He's got to do it. I go, well, ma'am, could you please consider, you're just one class. Remember, there's all the other ones. And then I go to the next one, well, he didn't finish. He's got to do them. How is this child going to finish his work? Good grief. It's like, are you joking, people? This kid is up till 2 or 3 in the morning, and the parents are frustrated already. They're sleep deprived. You can't do that. Now, if you're going to send one or the other, don't send classroom work and homework together. That's not fair. There's 7 subjects, so this is happening for each and every subject. Tendency to avoid reading, but look at this one. This is a big one, difficulty learning a foreign language. And I always go back because there's one student that I always remember. He was taking French and he bombed. He got like a 50 or a 40. I forgot what it was. So we went in, we talked to the teacher, we showed her his accommodation plan, and we said, well, he has extra time. And we have small step instruction. She goes, oh yes, I do. And I said, okay. I go, well, can we see his assignments? Why did he get that low? Good kid, really a bright kid. Well, he bombed. She goes, oh, well, I thought I gave it to him. And I said, no, ma'am, you can't think you gave it to him. You have to give it to him. This is the law. We don't want to go and step on anybody's toes, but this is 504. We've got a law here. Go back and redo. So she did. Now, he didn't get an A, but he got a B, which was awesome. We were thrilled because he did his work. He did the best that he could. Was that equal opportunity? Sure it was. This is difficult. That's a second language. So I think to myself, what about kids that are in English having to learn Spanish? Is it the same thing? Sure. What about kids that come and from Spanish having to learn English? Is it the same thing? Foreign language. We know that they have to establish that alphabetical principle in both languages. They have to establish sound symbol association in both languages. We just learned how many phonemes are there in English? 44. That's just one. So to be able to master another foreign language, is it going to be a task for a student with dyslexia? Oh, yes, it is. Look at post-secondary. Now they're in college. And the difficulties remain. Difficulty pronouncing names of people, remembering the names of people and places, word retrieval, spoken vocabulary, completing the reading demands, difficulty with note-taking, and difficulty with written production. The note-taking is that little smart pen is outstanding for that. Now, that can even be used for middle and high school kids because a lot of our students, we have them in our office and they get to check them out. And they help. Now, the teacher doesn't like it because it records everything that they're doing. A lot of teachers have been offended. And we come back and we show our little Bible. TEA is telling us that technology has to be done, sir, or ma'am. Now it's better, but that first year when we got them, we had a lot of unhappy teachers. And they were all from middle and the majority were high school. But now you all are here and you're understanding high school teachers. Why is it beneficial for our kids? So they can hear. They're not trying to catch a teacher doing something wrong. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with an advantage for a child.
Is it just like a recorder?
And it looks like kind of like your pin, just like a normal pin, and it has a caddy. It's hooked on. It has a little caddy, and it just charges there. And it's really cool. The new ones are awesome. Ours are outdated. Ours have been there since probably 5 or 6 years. Now there's newer ones, so the newer the better. Yes,
What
ma'am.
kind of accommodations have you seen for multiple course requirements?
Like
the
electives or
No,
for
no,
what?
in the post-secondary level. So in college, people are going to have multiple classes, so they're going to have multiple tests to study for. What kind of accommodations have you seen in your experience for those levels?
The main one is extra time. I have to really, really continue to stress on that. Small group setting. Small group setting becomes very difficult when you're at post-secondary.
So that's what is available?
Oh, they're all available. Even multiple step assignments, allowing recordings instead of written. There's a lot of good things out there now. Will everybody honor them? You have some teachers even at the college that'll say, but you have to do it once they start understanding what they're for. Now, it doesn't happen in the classroom. They get over at the university. They go to it was Mr. Wilder. There's a new person there. I don't know who it is. They go into a room and they go take the assignment over there. Now, for middle school and high school, we have a lot of good accommodation. We have preferential seating, the extended time, small group setting, sitting the student close to the source of information. We know that those are all advantages, so our students can be successful.
What about for the recording? For classes that have examples of like clinical material where they have patient, potential patient information, or at least
That
not
we
patient
probably would be
information,
able, well, confidential, that's what you're
yes,
saying.
confidential information. How does that recording affect that? And does
It-
the
it
confidential
might,
information
well,
override that?
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it might. We haven't had that in that setting. The majority of the time that we've used that smart pen has to do with math, for equations, for note taking, like in English as well. We haven't that. Now, confidentiality is very, very important. We would not be able to get all that information or know who's who or what. That even our students that have the pins, nobody knows the difference that these are certain pins. The only one that knows that that child has dyslexia is you, the teacher, and that child, and that's it. Because you can't tell with that pen or that paper, and it's nobody's business. We don't want our kids to be they don't want to stand out, and by the time they're in high school, our kids get embarrassed. They don't want other people to know, and I get it. My kids were in that boat. I remember my oldest son at one time. They made fun. He was on the football team, and they started making fun, and it can get ugly. But you have to remember that the only one that has to know are we that are educators and your student. That's it. Did you have a question, ma'am?
Yes, is that pin what you write and transferred it?
No,
Or is it actually like if you're speaking,
It's recorded.
it's recording and it's transferring
It's
what you're
recorded.
saying on the tablet?
Exactly. And my son, what the kids are using in high school is a lot for their math courses. So they can't keep up with the equations. So what they do is they start taking the notes, and then they push the recorder, and it continues. So they go home and they can finish taking their notes, and they know the equation. Now they're hearing the equation over and over and over. And one thing is with our repetition is a must. You have to keep repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating. Are there any? Do you have any more questions?
No, because we're looking at the pens, and some of them even have recording, like video
Camera,
recording.
video.
Those are probably the new. Ours don't. Just so
Well,
we
it's just-
know.
that's
You know,
kinda
the ones that
scary.
you will see if you're in high school with our students, we don't have them that. There. I mean, we know. And there's a new thing called that we just heard it. It's called a C pen. You can look that up. It's a scanner.
Yeah,
How many of you have ever used the Franklins? For those little Franklins, no? Our students use those Franklins. They have, they're dictionaries, but okay, those are really cool. They've been around for a long time. Some of our middle schools have those. Now it's called a C pen, and it's taking the place of a Franklin. And it's a scanner, it's a pen. And you go over it, and I don't know all the details, but we heard about that today. And it sounds like a really new gadget that's stemming sort of from a smart pen as well.
I didn't even know they made them this small. That's why I was like, what?
And they're really cool. You can look them up online and look at a YouTube video, and it shows you all
But
the.
now I know why probably teachers are scared of them, because
Yeah.
it's something that if they do something bad. you
And
can't-
we're not there to catch
Catch,
you or
right.
or anything, but it does record your lesson.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going. So this is really important. This has to do with the delivery of the curriculum. It has to be systematic. We simultaneous, systematic, explicit, diagnostic, synthetic, and analytical. When we go through all of this is something that we in our dyslexia lab have to do. When it comes to synthetic, it means that we start from the very small. Remember that I said that dyslexia stems from decoding, right? It's from not being able to put this letter with this sound. That's called synthetic approach. We start from the very little. Then we go to analytical, and we make our way out, which means now that we are going to teach reading comprehension, written composition. That's our goal. But we know that that's not where dyslexia stems from. It starts from right here, that synthetic approach. Examples of reasonable accommodation. These are some that we were asking. These are some that you may see when you're in your lab, when you're in your classroom. Copies of notes, note-taking assistance, additional time on class assignments, reduced or shortened assignments, alternative test location that provides a quiet environment and reduces distraction, priority seating assignment, oral reading of directions or written materials. That was what we were talking about. It'll be the oral directions, but you can't read the whole passage. Word banks. When it comes to word banks, try to stick with orthographic patterns and formula charts. That's going to be for math. Technology. This is what legislative action is telling us now. Technology has to be incorporated. How do we incorporate it? We use a smart pen and we use what's called Learning Ally. That way it's integrated. We also know that professional development is very important. Every campus at the beginning of the year has a Texas Education Code 21.054. You have to give the latest research on dyslexia. We need to be able to spread the wealth to the faculty and to parents at every campus. And this is why I'm here. All university candidates completing an educator preparation program must receive instruction in detection and education of students with dyslexia. This is something new. We know that now everybody that wants to become a teacher has to have a course with dyslexia. That's why I'm here. And that's what the law is saying. Why? Because we know 1 in 5 have dyslexia. We need to understand what we're going to look for in the classroom, and we need to understand how are we going to help these kids. And that's going to be the next part we're going to do.
When did that start?
This is already.
Well, when did it start though? What year?
I don't know. It's been probably now when I started here. Maybe it's been 3 or 4 years.
I was gonna say, because I graduated as a teacher and we didn't.
Me either. I didn't have this. This
we
is
didn't
something
have-
new.
yeah.
I think I've been doing ASTEP maybe 3 or 4 years. That's when
At the university, they never taught us this.
No, and it's something good because we weren't taught what to do. Now the law is saying you need to learn. Here's some helpful suggestions. Have students read directions out loud. Make games out of following directions. Make riddles out of describing. Look for reading. Use a marker when reading. Use audio textbooks. That's Learning Ally. If a student misreads letters and words, have them name the letters in the word. Have another student read to them. There's that peer buddy. Highlight important information. That you need to be very cautious. If you give a student with dyslexia a highlighter, they may highlight everything. You need to teach them what keywords to highlight, not just everything. Written language. They can use a computer. A hand spell checker. That's that Franklin that we were talking about. Dictate work to a teacher or classmate. That means that the teacher or a parent can be a scribe. Do oral reports instead of written reports. Develop a word bank or a list of frequently misspelled words. These are called irregular words. Organization. Organization is very crucial for students with dyslexia because they're very disorganized. So having planners, divide long-term projects into smaller part ones, using a daily planner, have a special place for putting homework and books, use a calendar for a long-term assignment and color code notebooks and folders. Today, I was sitting with a teacher from middle school, and she said, you know what? I'm going to do something different now. My students have to know 3 months ahead of time what they're doing. Her name is Trish, and I said, you know what? Do it. I think that would be wonderful. You're giving your kids a heads up instead of just saying, okay, this week you have this assignment. So she said she was going to put 3 calendars up, and that way everything was written. The kids already knew what to do. So they're a good check off. This is done, I'm done with that. This is done, I'm done with that. But it's giving them a heads up, and it gives them a little bit of to know what's expected of them. Look at math. How many of you are going to be math teachers? Oh, you're a math teacher. That's good. Look, using a calculator. Cut the math worksheet into 2 or 3 smaller worksheets. Use manipulatives when working with word problems. Draw pictures of word problems. Very good stuff. Self-esteem. This is something that all of us need to do with our kids. Focus on what they do well. If you focus on what they do wrong, You're gonna make a student with dyslexia feel terrible. Boost their self-esteem, make them feel good. Compliment your student for trying something that is difficult for them. Focus on how many answers were right instead of how many were wrong. And reassure your student that although learning is difficult, they are smart. And that's really important. We as educators have a lot of power in our words. We can make a child feel really good, or we can make a child feel really bad. We have to learn to be able to magnify the good in our students. Dyslexia is a neurological issue. It's not a character flaw. And this comes from the big picture. HBO had a documentary on dyslexia, and it was an excellent documentary. And this is where I got the quote. It's not my quote, but it was so true. They were able to interview students. They talked to, I think it was Robert Redford's, not son, but nephew. And he's one of the main guys that come out on here, but the parents talk about all the difficulties. Anybody that's interested in watching that, I highly recommend that documentary that was on HBO. And of course, all of this information comes from the handbook. Are there any questions? Okay, are we okay? Let's have a break, okay? 10 minutes, yes? So I can get ready for my other stuff. Thank you.
Total of 80. And the rest 100 points. Some of them are going to use, some of them are not going to use. So say you get the non, you're not, you won't know which ones are used and which ones are. Yeah, well, yeah, but say you get those wrong, they're not going to. Did you get my phone? No. So like say for instance, you got, say you've got maybe 7 you don't know which ones are, if they're going to use which ones are not.
Oh, she's falling asleep? Okay, your dad has a phone?
I saw.
Okay. If you need anything, emergency,
20 got
call it to this phone. You need emergency.
Yeah, well,
I'm right next to you. Okay, just send it to me on my phone.
Well, what this it sets it up, for instance, these three first competency 1, 2, and 3.
Hello?
Then competency 4, 5, and 6. So I don't know, maybe you can have like 1, but it has 2 and 3. So they don't. No, mine's in related.
About speech,
Like I said,
and then you can do little tests and
approximately. More than likely, we have finished it.
so if you use like tips.
I actually started earlier. When you click, when you start, it has a timer. So it doesn't matter if you start at 8:30. It doesn't give you the opportunity to do your work and
It's just and they give you a copy.
just keep on reviewing.
Did you find that
They work harder. They work harder. I was pretty amazed. Some of them were super hard, and then I went over some of the things on that book. It was like, it didn't even show up. I had like 1 or 2 questions. I was like, there was like 2 of them that I was like, I have no idea because and study and stuff, so I'm just gonna guess and make the answers. And that's kind of what it is.
How about you, Eric? What is your test?
Mine's been tight. A ver si vienen felices.
They're legal or?
I know. You have a hard city.
Because you're telling the wrong person.
I'm just asking, we have something that somebody was saying you're like breakfast is 7:30. Oh. 7:30 to 8. No, I'm not gonna really tell you that we have kids that are lazy. Dos compañeros. Things that you need to have a collaboration between you and the parents. What if it's not one issue, it's not just your issue, it's you, the teachers, the
We're gonna go over one. And
There is things like that, like like when you said penmanship, no, I always do understanding why they don't. Or sometimes my work.
Oh, I was, it's
Well, just
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and start again. We're gonna do some activities to tackle the areas of elementary. We talked a little bit about the importance of delivering our instruction, but there's also 8 components that we tackle when it comes to instruction for students with dyslexia. And we're gonna go over some. I know I had a video, and I'm hoping everybody saw the video. I had some of the activities where you could tackle like sound symbol association, morphology, syllabication. So I do want to go over the first one. We know when it comes to dyslexia in the state of Texas, dyslexia is dyslexia, but there are different levels of dyslexia. There's mild, moderate, and severe. The categorization for Texas is you still have to tackle dyslexia with those instructional components regardless of what it is. Do you see the differences? Yes. As an educator and as a parent, I saw the differences with both of my sons. And as an educator, I've seen where my severe dyslexic student can have maybe more than one learning disability in there, which means that maybe I have to do a referral for special ed if needed, because maybe dyslexia is not enough, the therapy that we can provide. They may need more assistance than what 504, under 504 can give them. But we talked about the 2 areas of weakness, right? We said phonology, PA, which is phonological awareness. Phonological awareness is a big umbrella. But bottom line, it has to do with a lot of rhyming, and it has to do with a lot of segmenting, omitting sounds, final sounds, generating rhyming words. So let's go over an activity. I'm going to give you some words, and I want you to tell me if they rhyme or not. Okay? So let's see if we can hear that final sound. Hat, cat. Yes.
Lip, sad.
No.
Sip, lip.
Yes.
Yes.
Pig, dig.
Yes.
Yes, me.
No.
Hen, pen.
Yes.
Sing, ring.
Yes.
Goat, boat.
Yes.
My, sky.
Yes.
Race, place.
Yes.
When, why.
No.
Book, cook.
Yes.
Come, comb.
No.
Clock, block.
Yes.
Keep, jeep.
Yes.
Pay, pace.
No.
Send, bend.
Yes.
Sail, same.
No.
Tent, went.
Yes.
Fun, bun.
Yes.
Good. This is just a simple activity. Could anybody in elementary, even middle school, you could do. Does it have to be just these basic words? No. But what are you doing? You're trying to see if the student can hear that what sound? The final sound, right? Now I'm going to give you some other words. My book is really, I use my book a lot. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a word and I want you to tell me what sound you hear in initial position. The first word, mat. There you go. Okay. Set. Met. Rag. Wag. Sun. Fan. Dig. 10. Pig. Lost. Ship. Stem. Plate. Vet. Good. These are simple things that you can do, but now what are you looking for? That initial sound, right? So, going over your alphabet with your students is also another PA activity. It has to do with, well, this is a letter recognition. So I'd like you to look at, I know it's really small and I apologize, I don't have a bigger one, but I'd like you to look at the alphabet. Oh, and I need you to do these. Everybody can get a mirror, just pass them down. And maybe share if possible. There may not be enough for everyone. Can y'all share? Can y'all share? Okay, I'd like you to look at your alphabet. It's up here, and I'm sorry it's so small. But who can tell me how many letters are in the alphabet?
26.
Woo, good job. 26 letters. And we have two types of letters. What are they?
Vowels and consonants.
Good job. So, what do vowels do? I want you to look at your mouth, look in your mirror, and look at your mouth. And I want you to say A, E, I, O, U. What's happening to your
They
mouth?
don't touch your lips. Your
Vowels
teeth don't
It's
touch.
unobstructed.
are non-bilingual.
Okay, it's unobstructed. Did somebody say that? Okay, so that means my mouth is open. I want you to put your fingers on your throat and say A, E, I, O, U. Is this moving?
Yes.
So it's voice. We know that vowels do what to the mouth? They open the mouth and they are voiced. How many vowels do we have? 5. Let's name the 5 vowels. A, E, I, O, U. So we have 26 letters in the alphabet. How many consonants do we have?
21.
21 consonants, right? So let's see what's happening to our mouth. Look at your mirror, and I want you to say the sound, and I want you to say the B sound. What's happening to your mouth? The lips are in the way. Good job. Right? So my mouth is what? It's closing. Put your fingers on your throat. Voiced or unvoiced?
Voiced.
Voiced. Ah, consonants are closing my mouth. I want you to go now to the D and say, what's in the way? My teeth. You said first the lips, now the teeth are in the way. So let's put your fingers on your throat. Voiced or unvoiced? Voiced. Now I want you to do the M and say, voiced or unvoiced? Voiced. Put your fingers on your nose and see if you can make the sound.
Nasal.
A nasal sound. Good job. It's a nasal sound. And let's do another one. Look at the V. Say, voiced or unvoiced? Voiced. And we know that what's in the way also, the lips. Look at the N, and I want you to say, voiced or unvoiced? Voiced. And what's in the way? The tongue. You're going to have consonants that are voiced and consonants that are unvoiced. But we know one thing that's happening. Consonants close the mouth. The sound is blocked or partially blocked by the tongue, teeth, or lips. So now when you give the kids and you let them see what's going on with the linguistics of the mouth, they start the articulation of the mouth, they start understanding the linguistics of the ABCs. Why is it important for them to know what's going on with the mouth? Because that's how they're hearing. If they don't know what's going on with their mouth, they may not be hearing the sound that you're giving them. So we teach our students that there's 26 letters. We also teach them that A is in initial position, Z is in final, and smack in the middle are M and N. They're middle letters, but all the rest of the letters are known as medial letters. We give them a mirror so they can see and they can understand how to pronounce the word. Are there any questions on that? That has to do with the alphabetical principle. Now, I'm going to give you some sounds. Because now I know that they know the alphabet, but how do I know if they know their sound? So I'm going to give you a sound and you're going to tell me what letter makes the sound. Now I'm talking with sound symbol association. The first sound.
R.
Good job.
Y.
Good.
H. T.
TH. Ooh, good job. Oh. It feels like when you're hitting the stomach. Oh.
U.
UH.
Oh. Book. Oh.
Double O.
Oh. There you go. Next sound.
B.
Next sound. I.
I.
Next sound.
E.
E. Good job. Next sound.
N.
Next sound.
X.
Good. We know that X has two sounds, right? KS. Next sound.
O.
L.
Let me give you a hard one. You all go good. Next sound.
M.
Next sound.
G.
Next sound. W. Next sound.
SH.
Next sound.
F.
Here's a hard one. Next sound.
Z.
C.
What sound makes that?
S or C?
S. What else makes that?
C.
C.
C. What else makes that?
I.
What about dress?
Double
SS. What else? What about nose? No, that's a different one. I don't want to get mice.
C.
C what?
E.
C E. So now you start understanding. It gets a little bit harder, right? What about E? The sound E.
Double E.
B T E. 3
Double
E.
E.
E. What about athlete?
E.
E. Consonant E. What about penny?
Consonant.
No, what's in final position?
Y.
Y. Ah, sound symbol association. Do they know that? It gets harder, right? What about U?
OU.
Cube U.
EW.
U, consonant E. What about unicorn? Just U. What about statue? UE. What about ah? Oh, watch. Okay, oh, octopus ah. What about watch? A. Anytime you have a W by an A, it's pronounced now what? Ah. It's no longer pronounced A. What about J? What about giraffe? G, what about hinge? DG, what about bat? No, GE, what about badge? DGE, there you go. What about idge? Package. AGE. What about yun? Explosion.
SHUN.
SION. Good job. It becomes harder, right? What about CK? C. What about cake? What about cake?
KE.
What about KE? What about picnic? C in final position, right? Let me give you one more. U. Calm. What else? What about banana? A. What about tuna? A again, but in final position. It becomes harder and harder. And you can use this. I was going to do some of these for your secondary because sound symbol association is very important to establish. Is it easy? No. Why do you think it's important for the kids to know sound symbol association? Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I had a question.
Oh, okay. And let me tell you why. Remember the areas of weakness that I said dyslexia stems from? It stems from decoding and encoding, which is spelling. If the kids don't know, this is what I gave you right now, all those sounds, those are all the different ways of spelling these sounds. So do you think kids are going to have a hard time for spelling? Heck yeah. If we don't teach them the rules, how are they going to learn? Yes, ma'am.
In your professional opinion, do you feel that it would be better for each individual students, not just students with dyslexia, to be taught phonetically rather than alphabetically?
Yes, but there's a big debate, yeah, on that, on whole language versus small group settings or doing phonetic, right? Now, I'm not going to come and tell you that a lot of kids won't learn whole language. Yes, they will. You've got a lot of kids that you'll go in front and you say, you give your lecture and they learn. But a lot of those kids already are learning before they even came to your classroom. But the majority of the kids will benefit from using that phonetic approach, but that debate has been going on for a very long time. You as a teacher will have to be diagnostic with your teaching. You're going to see that all your kids are not going to learn the same, so you're going to have to differentiate. You're going to have to maybe teach these 3 kids to do it this way, 4 kids to learn this way, 5 kids the other. That's what good teachers do. You differentiate the curriculum. Is it easier to get in front of an audience and say, okay, you write your lecture on the board and then let them do the work? Oh yeah, it's a lot easier. But unfortunately, out of that group, not everyone's going to learn it. So would it be beneficial? Yes.
Is that something that is incorporated within the therapies in the school districts?
Yes. For us, yes, definitely. That's why we pull them out for 45 minutes, because what I'm giving you is what we teach our kids. They have to understand how to spell. There's so many ways of spelling that letter K, that K sound. How about that S sound? What about Z? You can spell it with a Z, you can spell it with an SE, nose. There's a lot of different ways of being able to spell it, and how are you going to know when you're going to have to spell it in initial position or final position?
Doesn't that depend on the schools? Because where I'm teaching last year, they incorporated phonics as a lesson. So they have their ELA and they have their phonics as a lesson. So everything you just said, initial position, final position, everything I knew, last year I was in first grade, so everything that you said, it's like a review to me.
It is.
But doesn't that depend also on the schools,
Yes,
if they
it
wanna
does.
integrate phonics as a 45-minute lesson?
Yes, it does. When I was back in the classroom, we had what was called language enrichment, and I did that as my bilingual students. And we did the phonetic approach to language enrichment, which tackles all the components as well that any student that's a struggling reader will benefit. Now, the components that I'm tackling are going to be a little more in depth because they're more specific for students with dyslexia. But can they benefit? Can other kids benefit? Definitely. That's why I'm giving you little ideas of what you can do with your kids. Doesn't matter if they're elementary, middle, or high school. They will benefit. It's a good, like you just said, a good review. It's a good review for the kids as well. Do they need it a constant repetition? Definitely.
For the kids, it was new because now they were getting the hang of it on how to actually pronounce the words, how to spell them correctly, how to write them correctly. And you would ask them, and by January, they would already know how they're supposed to write it.
That's awesome. But that was consistency. That's that,
Yes.
that structured approach, so that's a good way.
Yes.
But you can't just do it one time and say, okay, that's it. No. It's every day, every day, every day, every day, all the way from the beginning to the end of the year. You embedded that information into the student, so it's very successful that way.
I have a friend that she believes that her daughter has dyslexia, but the teacher hasn't. She wants for her to get tested. How does that happen for the parent to?
A parent can request for dyslexia evaluation. They have to go to the school and the paperwork. We have what's called an RTI process, which has to do with gathering data, and interventions are going to be done for a period of time. There's no set time. Tackling those areas of weakness. No, those are called interventions. Interventions basically are good teaching strategies. That's all there are. Now, if those strategies aren't effective, that's when a dyslexia evaluation is considered. Because if a child starts doing better with different interventions, that means that the teacher has to change her way of teaching. That's all it is.
Because she doesn't want, like the teachers keep saying that she's fine, but her husband has dyslexia, and she believes that she has problems blending.
And it probably does.
But the teacher's like hesitant about, we'll get to it. But she says that she doesn't want her, right now it's early enough to detect it so she won't further, because she's falling behind.
As a parent, she has the right to request a dyslexia evaluation at whatever campus, whether the teacher wants it or not. Because as a parent, you may be seeing something different than what the classroom teacher is. And remember, sometimes classroom teachers, we as educators, you've got 20-something kids. Are you paying attention to every single one? No,
And that's
you
what she
can't.
notices at home, because she tells her, tell me the word. But most of the words she memorizes them, because she'll memorize the story. Like she'll tell her, okay, start reading, and she'll memorize the story some way, somehow. But then when she tells her, okay, show me this, tell me the word, and she doesn't know, she doesn't know how to blend. Like she'll know the initial, but she won't know how to blend the rest of it.
That she can have a request. Request for the evaluation. Okay. We also have one of our components for dyslexia has to do with syllabication. And I did in my video, I went over some of the 6-syllable types. Let's see if anybody remembers. Can anybody tell me? There are 6-syllable types in English. And that's what we as reading teachers, we always want to make sure that our students understand what they are. Can anybody tell me one? No? Okay, let me go over. We have what's called a closed syllable. We have an open syllable word. We have an R-controlled syllable. We have a vowel team syllable, which means there are 2 vowels together. We have a vowel silent, and a vowel consonant E syllable, and then a vowel final stable syllable. So we're going to go over one of those right now. And I'm going to pretend that you all are my students. So today, class, you're going to learn a new sound, and this is introducing a syllable type. Today you're going to learn a new sound, and the sound that these letters make. I want you to echo cable,
Cable.
Copy.
Copy.
Calculator.
Calculator.
Customer.
Customer.
Clatter.
Clatter.
What sound do you hear in all of these words? Good job. Do you hear it in initial, medial, or final?
Initial.
You hear it in initial position, correct? So listen to this riddle. I usually sit in a saucer with coffee filling me up. I match your set of dishes and you drink me up. I'm a... Let me try one more time. I usually sit in a saucer with coffee filling me up. I match your set of dishes and you drink me up.
Cup.
I'm a teacup. K, Kai, Do you see this little line? This is called a K back. Why?
Because it makes the K sound.
It sounds like a K. Which one is stronger, the C or the K? The K.
There is no C.
So we want the kids to understand that that C in initial position at the very beginning sounds like a what? A K. So we also have to teach them how to code some of these words, right? So I'm going to write some words up here. And I want you to look at these words. And I will remind my students, remember boys and girls, what do we know about a breve? These are diacritical marks, right? A breve makes a vowel short. What do we know about a macron? A macron makes a vowel long. These are marks that we're going to only put over vowels. So, we know if a word is in a consonant, the vowel is short, you're going to code it with a breve. And you want your kids to understand, so they're going to code. Can you say this word?
Cost.
The word is in a consonant, the vowel is short, coded with a brief K back because that K sound is in initial position. And we're going to cross out one of the S's. Why? Because twin consonants stand side by side, cross one out, it's silent. Is there any use for that S? No. But we know because of the floss rule, you have to teach a kid, you have to teach your student, when are you going to have to double that S? So can you say this word?
Class.
We're going to do the same thing. We're going to put a K back and we're going to put a breve. Can you say the word?
Cast.
What do I know about consonants? Consonants do what to the mouth? They close the mouth. Closed syllable words are one of the 6 syllable types. That's the one I just introduced. Vowels open the mouth, consonants close. If a word ends in a consonant, the vowel has to be what? Short. You're going to code it with a breve. I taught them my first syllable type, which is going to be my closed syllable. I'm going to want to do this with all the 6 syllable types so that way they can understand. Remember we talked about explicit instruction? I need to demonstrate this to them. I need them to understand when is that K sound in initial position. Now I have to teach my kids, how are they going to know when to spell with a C for this K sound? How do they know? They're going to have to spell with a C by an A, O, U, or any consonant. Oh, you all don't have your packages. I forgot. Sorry. Can you get pass them down? Sorry. I apologize. I forgot. Everything is in there, so you have your lesson in there. Sorry. But that's how you teach your students, right? When am I going to spell with a K?
When you have a vowel right next to the consonant?
E, I, or Y.
Yeah.
So I have to teach my students that because they don't know about spelling. Remember that spelling is that area of weakness. So they're going to say, oh, both of these have a K, but I'm going to spell with a C by an A, O, U, or any consonant. By an A consonant, or O. A, O, U, or any consonant. When am I going to spell with a K? By E, I, or Y. And that was your next one.
That
So-
would have helped me, because my first language is Spanish. That would have helped me a long time ago when I
Yes.
was learning English. Yes, you teach that.
Oh my goodness.
Because you're saying that's only for, you teach that for dyslexic children, right?
This we do also, this would be beneficial for all of your
Oh,
other
right.
students. Thank you for helping me. Turn the page, that way you can get to that orthography. One of your other components has to do with orthography. So let's go up to the, to page, I think it's 22 that you have on there. Oh, no, we're gonna go to the application. So now what I need you to go is to reading practice 36. Yeah, we'll do that one in a little bit. Thank you. Sorry. Go to reading practice 36, and I'd like you to code your words, please. Let's code row 1. You're going to code. Remember that I already showed you how? Now you're going to code using a brief, so let's go ahead and code row 1. I want you to put your K back on there, and I want you to code your, put a brief over your vowel, and let's go ahead and code all of row 1.
Wait, are we supposed to cross out the other N's?
If you have 2 N's, yes. The 2 S's, go ahead and code. Put your K back on your C. And put your brief over your vowel, because that vowel is short. You're going to code it with a brief. And these marks you're going to find in your dictionaries. This is going to guide you on how to pronounce your words. And the reason you're putting your K back is because the K is strong. It's stronger than your C. So I want you to prepare row 1, and let's go ahead and read row 1. Ready? Read. Cat. Scrub. Crust. Prepare. Go ahead and code row 2. And I want you to cross out that S. When you have 2 consonants that stand side by side, cross one out, it becomes silent. Prepare row 2 and read.
Class. Plan. Crab.
Good job. Code row 3, please.
Could it be an adjective? Yes, but it's very unlikely. I don't want to say that it isn't, because we do have to have seen it, but it's not a big percentage. Now, I'm not going to come and tell you that they don't read, because that's false. They, of course, they're going to read, but it's rare that you see them reading all of them. Not all of them, because we do have kids that just read, but the majority belong to. Although they do read a lot of things that take place. Yes, ma'am.
Are we incorporating dialects into this? So like plan, or are we just shortening?
All of them are going to be short. Prepare row 3 and read. Cub. Fact. Stop. Right? That vowel says what? Off. Vowels do what to the mouth? They open the mouth. Off. Let's go to row 4. Code. Prepare. Read. Scout. Clip. Cling. Look at that NG in final position. What's happening to your mouth, your tongue, your mouth when you're saying That tongue is going up, right? It's not it's So we know right there that if that's considered a consonant cluster, 2 or more adjacent letters that it's making one sound, but it's doing something also to the mouth. It's bringing your tongue up. Let's code row 5 and read. Clap, cast, class. Why would I want to do this? I introduce something, now I have to have my students apply, right? What they know. So now what I want you to do is I want you to turn your page. We know that the area of weakness also is orthography. That's spelling. So I want you to look at your first part, and I want you to follow along as I read. Look at the first title. It says the k sound before A, O, U, or a consonant is spelled C as in cup. Look at the second column. It says the k sound before E, I, or Y is spelled K as in kite. Right here, what I had just told you. But look at the medial k sound before E. After a short vowel is spelled CK as in ticket. So let's go to the first column and let's go ahead and spell 2 or 3 words and we're going to go to the next. The first column, remember this is going to be with an initial what? C. I'd like you to spell the word, I want you to echo scalp. And I want you to look over here because when we're giving a spelling assignment to our students, we always try to sound it out first. It's apple, and then go ahead and write it. Always try to engage your students so they hear the sound and then they write it. Now why? You're tackling their pathways. This is called multi-sensory approach to learning. The next word is the word scat. Echo, scat. At.
Can you give it the definition?
And the last word is the word fact. Echo, fact. Act. Okay, let's go over the first word. What was the first word that we got?
Scalp.
Scalp. Touch it, point, and name your letters. S-C-A-L-P. I'm tackling now another pathway, right? Because now they're touching and pointing their letters. Let's go to the second word. What was the word?
Scat.
Scat. Let's touch it, point, and name our letters. S-C-A-T. Does my word look like yours?
Yes.
Now they're checking and you're checking for understanding. What's the third word?
Fact.
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 Touch it, point, and name your letters. F-A-C-T. Does your word look like mine?
Yes.
Something as simple as this can be very beneficial for your students with spelling. This is orthography. Let's go to the last column. It reads the medial sound before E after a short vowel is spelled CK as in ticket. So let's go to the first word. Bucket. Echo. Bucket. Touch and point and name your letters. B-U-C-K-E-T. Does your word look like mine?
Yes.
Now you're moving a little quicker with them, right? The next word is the word docket. Echo.
Docket.
It. Touch and point and name your letters.
D-O-C-K-E-T.
And here you have, you're tackling their pathways and you're tackling encoding and you're giving them a rule. Are there any questions with an introduction of a closed syllable? That's one way of being able to introduce. Remember, there's 6 syllable types. We just introduced a closed syllable. We applied it because you're checking for understanding, and then we're learning how to spell. Something as simple as this, but maybe using higher order words, for those of you that are in middle and high school, will be beneficial. Yes, sir?
What you wrote down there in this sheet, is that first row and second row?
No.
No, right?
I was trying to jump through. No, this would have
Okay.
been, this is first, and then I didn't do the middle.
Okay.
Okay? Because, okay, let's try the middle. When am I going to spell with a K? By E, I, or Y? Let's try one. The first word is the word kept. Echo, kept. Touch and point and name your letters.
E-P-T.
here's kept. By E, I, or Y, right? Let's go to the next word. The next word is the word king. Echo.
King.
E. Remember, two consonants that make one sound. Touch and point. Oh, touch and point to name your letters. K-I-N-G. E, I, or what other letter? We said Y, right? The next word is the word skip. Echo.
Skip.
I. Touch and point to name your letters. K-I-P. Kyle. Are there Kyle? Yeah, a name. Is there any questions? That would be the first, the second, and the third column. You could also give the kids and say, now you've already introduced them, so you're going to tell them, okay, I'm going to give you a word, skim. What column would it go under, skim?
Middle.
The middle. There you go. Now you're challenging them. What about the word bracket? The last one. What about the word scat? The first. Oh, I had it up. What about the word clang? The first. What about the word jacket?
Last.
What about the word skill?
K.
The middle, under the K. You can make it as challenging or as simple as needed. I have what? It's 8:20. Okay, let's keep going. What time was I supposed to start? 8:20. Let me go over really quick. Okay, these are some activities that we can also do for middle school or high school as well, and elementary. Okay, another one of the components is called morphology. Morphology has to do with the parts of words, prefixes, suffixes. So, and why does this help? Because they have what? Meaning. A prefix has a meaning, a suffix has a meaning. So I want you to look at this. This is called a vowel suffix es. What do you think vowel suffix es means?
Plural.
Plural. It means more than one. Good job. What about suffix ly?
More.
It means like or how. Safely. Like or how. Why do they need to know that? Because if they're writing for you, it's going to have a meaning. What about est? Vowel suffix. It starts with a vowel. This is called vowel suffix est. It means the biggest, the most. What about suffix y? Sunny.
It's like an action.
It means having. What about vowel suffix ed? Happened in the past. What about vowel suffix en? Wooden, sweeten. It means made of or to make. Something as simple as this, can it change the way somebody is using these suffixes in writing? Yeah. What if we did this? I'm still focusing on morphology. What if I now want to do prefixes? What about prefix self? Self. It means what?
One.
Self. One person. That's correct. What about vowel suffix off? It means off. Who said off? Somebody said off? Yeah. It does. Some are simple. Over.
Above.
Over means above or over. Good job. What about under? Below or beneath. Not opposite of. For. What is it?
Before.
Before. Who said before? Yes. Good job. And what about in? On or in. Morphology. Is it important? Sure it is. Also, I'd like you to look also up here. When you start focusing on your parts of speech, that's called syntax. Syntax has to do with all your different parts of speech. Now you can make them as simple, use them as just basic noun markers. Who can tell me, what do you think is a noun marker? Have anybody heard of a noun marker? You might call them an article before. They're also an article.
Root word,
A what? A clue word?
like a root word, like the chord.
Well, there's three of them. Three, and they used to call them, who knows what the articles are in English? There's three words.
A verb.
There it is. It's the, and an. These are them. The, and an. And this part of speech has one little job, one little thing it tells me. Because if your students are going to have to dissect, how many of you are English teachers here? You'll be doing this. They're going to be dissecting. You need to come up with prepositional phrases, right? An article does one thing. It tells me that this is coming. A noun is coming. That's all it does. It has one simple job. And what is a noun?
Person, place, thing, or idea.
Good. But we have something that describes a noun, and what is it called?
An adjective.
An adjective. Good. Adjectives describe a noun. And then we have our predicate part of the sentence, which starts with a what? A verb. What do verbs do? Action and movement. But then we have a part of speech that describes a verb.
The adverb.
Adverb. When I want to find my adverb, I have three questions. What are they?
Where's the verb?
Where's the verb it's modified?
Yes, but you have to find it. If you're going to be an English teacher, you have to dissect, find the verb, and you have to ask how, when, and where. That's going to answer where this is, because now my adverb is going to tell me where is my verb. Then I have a part of speech that I want to go from simple to complex. What do you think it is here? Conjunction. A conjunction will connect. But look at this little part of speech here. Prepositions. Prepositional phrases can go from make a sentence a simple to a complex sentence. Something as easy as this. So what I'd like you to do is I want you to turn to, first I want you to go to your elementary one, and then we're going to compare the elementary to the secondary, and go to worksheet 12. The first one. No, we're going to go over the rapid after this. But it's worksheet 12. In the first sentence, it reads, the heavy rain flooded the city streets. It's on the elementary, and then you're going to flip over to the secondary. The elementary reads that. The secondary is at the very, very end. And it says, we are going to the circus today. Worksheet 1 is 21 and worksheet 12. But I want you to look at the word at the first sentence, and I want you to tell me, if I asked you, and this is for your students, you want to make it challenging, and I want you to ask the students, okay, what are your noun markers in the first sentence? The and the, right? What about your nouns? What are your nouns?
Streets.
Good job. What are your adjectives?
Heavy.
And city. Good, because what kind of streets? They're city streets. What is your verb?
Flooded.
Good. Let's go to number 2. A clever man invented the new toy. What are your noun markers? And And what did I tell you about a noun marker? It tells you that a noun is coming. So what are your nouns? Man and toy. What are your adverbs? Well, no, adjective, excuse me. Clever and new. And what is your verb? Excellent. Let's go to number 3. The pretty woman bought a new car. What are your noun markers? And a noun marker tells me a noun is coming. What are the nouns? And car. What are your adjectives? Good. What is your verb? Bought. Did you see the pattern?
Yes.
Usually, I have my students color code, and they know that they're going to highlight all the nouns in red, all the adjectives in blue, all the verbs in yellow, all the nouns in yellow, all the verbs in orange, adverbs in purple, prepositions in green, and conjunctions in brown. Because I want to make sure that they understand that there's a pattern here. It's all a pattern. But I need them to master their parts of speech as well. Now I want you to get the one for middle school and turn to that too.
Yeah.
Worksheet 21 is the last one on your secondary.
It's on the other one.
Okay. Now it doesn't matter whether you use these colors or not. What's important is that you're consistent with the colors that you use so the students can see the pattern. There's a pattern here once you're color coding. Now I want you to look at the next sentence and I'm going to read it to you. It says, we are going to the circus today. What are your noun markers there? The. What about your nouns?
Circus.
We and circus. Do you have adjectives? What about verbs?
Going.
One more is missing. Are going, right? But there's another part of speech there, which is your adverb. Are going, remember you have to find your verb to get your adjective. So your verb is what? Are going, and you have to ask how, when, or where. Are going how? No. Are going when? No. Are going, yes. Are going where or when? Today. There's your adverb. It has to answer how, when, or where. Let's go to number 4. She washed the dishes carefully. Which is our noun marker? And a noun marker tells me a noun is coming. Which is my noun? Dishes. What other noun? She. What about my verb? Wash. Now, I also have to see, what is the word carefully?
That's an adverb.
It's an adverb. But it answers how? Carefully. But hint, hint. Look at what's at the end of carefully. Ly, morphology here. What do we know about words with ly? They're all what? Going to be? Adverbs. That's going to be our hint for our students. And what did it answer? How? Yes, how? Carefully. Let's look at number 8. A fluffy cat chased the mouse into the hole. Noun markers. So it's the, and the. Nouns. Hole. Good job. What about verb? Chased. Good.
Fluffy is an adjective.
Good job. We know that cat is what kind of a cat? It's a fluffy cat.
Into is a preposition.
Okay, good job. What about into? It's going to be a what? What is your prepositional phrase?
Into the hole.
Into the hole. Put your finger over into the hole, and is that a complete sentence? A fluffy cat chased the mouse?
Yes.
Yes, it is. A simple sentence is right there. Into the whole, I made it into a complex sentence. As easy as a what? Prepositional phrase. Super important to be able to go from simple to complex. Let's try one more. And let's go to number 5. The squirrel quickly scampered up the tree. Noun markers, the and the. And a noun marker tells me a noun is coming. So what are your nouns?
Squirrel and tree.
What's your verb?
Scampered.
Scampered how?
Quickly.
Ah, I answered my how, when, and where. Scampered how? Quickly. So that's going to be my what? My adverb. And what was my hint? Ly.
Is up a preposition?
Up is what?
The preposition.
There's your preposition. And so up the tree is going to be your prepositional phrase. Now put your finger over up the tree and read the sentence. The squirrel quickly scampered. Is that a sentence? Yes, it is. Simple sentence. Up the tree made it into a complex sentence. Could I have done more and added more and added more? Sure, I could. You're going to be the diagnostic in your campus. You're going to know your audience, and you're going to know whether your students are able to do this or not. But being able to tackle all your parts of speech are very important. This is called syntax, mechanics of writing. Okay, let's go ahead and turn now. I want to go over really quickly and go into your rapid naming. And I need you to open up both of them, one for middle school and one for high school. The one is called At the Ocean in the Summer, and the other one is Sport Fishing.
These are the other ones.
I have the one at the ocean in the sun. Yeah. She said there's another one.
Yeah. It's not here. We don't have the one on the
You don't
secondary.
have a sport fishing?
No.
It's all right. We'll do the one for the elementary, okay? But I want you to see the difference of why we have this. Anytime, and this is for automaticity. Remember that I was telling you when there's times when you go into a classroom and you see these walls that are called the Dolch words, the Fry words. Teachers name them all kinds of things. Bottom line, they're all irregular. That's what usually happens. These are all irregular words. So before you introduce a reading passage, you always want to get those irregular words and have your students do a rapid naming chart for at least 1 minute. Why? There is no orthographic pattern here for these words to be learned. The only way to learn these words is you have to memorize them. Remember that we did this? We did the scientific spelling that we did. Why? How are you going to spell C? How are you going to spell with a K? With that K sound? There's nothing you can do with these words.
Are these called sight words?
Teachers call them sight words.
Sorry.
But bottom line, they're irregular. There's no pattern for them. So what do? Extract them from your reading passage and pull them out and put them on a chart and have them read these words. So let's try to read these words. Let's go to at the ocean in the summer. So we're going to follow along. I'm going to try to do this. I was going to do this for a minute.
Ocean, your people have the ocean people have the ocean people have your word. People have ocean.
And we're going to read it together. Ready? Go. Ocean put to your people have to your ocean people have put people ocean put to have your put your people have ocean to have to your put people ocean. Go, go, go. Keep going. Ocean put to your people have to your ocean people have put people ocean put to have your put your people have ocean to have your put people ocean. Keep going. Put to your people have To your ocean people have. Go, go, go. To your put people ocean. Go, go, go. Keep going. Put to have your put your. Okay, go ahead and stop. We're gonna stop. These are 30 words right here. So we went 3. So 3 times 3, 9. That's 90 words and a little bit more. So here you're able to tackle that fluency for the students to build that automaticity. So maybe you're gonna say the students read 90 words per minute. Is this something important that we have to note? Yes, it is. But we want to build automaticity for this. So on the other one that I had for sport fishing, the words were through, there, many, done, where, move. Now look at the word through. Through. How many syllables does the word through have? 1. What about the word there? 1. Many. 2. Done. 1. Where? 1. Move. So out of those words I only had for the secondary one, I had one word that had 2 syllables, which means that my mouth has to open twice to say that word. Is it going to take a little bit longer? Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Is this something that I could individually test the students in middle school with, and then just so I could see their like level of comprehension?
Yes, it is. Not comprehension. No, not comprehension.
Fluency. I'm sorry.
Fluency.
Right.
That's correct.
And then, so if I determine where they're at, then I would kind of determine.
That's your starting point.
Right.
Yes.
So
Everybody
I
has
can
to
do this
have
at
a
the beginning of the year.
baseline. Yes.
Okay.
You can do this. This is great. Now look at the one that we just did at the ocean in the summer. Ocean, how many syllables? 1. Put, how many syllables? 2, how many syllables? Your people have. So that word people means that your mouth has to open twice to say it. People. Every time a syllable, every time you open your mouth, that's twice. So it's going to take longer. You're trying to get, when you want to build that fluency or build automaticity, get words that are irregular but that have 2 syllables, 2 syllables, 2 syllables. Now the kids are going to struggle, but you need them to build that automaticity. Remember that dyslexia has to do with the processing of the brain. The brain is different, so what we do is we tackle that multisensory way of teaching and of learning because we need to stimulate the brain. I told you that the brain goes from the right to the left, down onto paper. It takes twice as long. And students with dyslexia use their frontal lobe. Hemispheres are enlarged and they're always going and going and going and going and going. That's why their cognitive ability is so high. We need to tackle and we need to show them how to be able to stimulate to go from this part of the brain, because this is the creativity part of the brain. And this is the core subjects of the brain. That's what a normal brain does. This is the reading, the writing, the math, the science. Dyslexia is not like that. They use the right part of the brain for everything. So it takes twice as long. From here to here, down onto paper, twice as long. So use your pathways. Use this, the way that color coding. It's easy for them. They start seeing all the different patterns and it makes written composition easier. Use this also for orthography, spelling. Show them the rules. Now, I don't know if I put it in your other one. Did you get on your other one? Did you get this? The web? Okay. When it comes to webbing for students, it's very important that students will extract vocabulary to construct meaning of text. How can students do this? By something as simple as a dictionary or a thesaurus. Remember that I told you what a breed and what a macron was, these diacritical marks? This is what you find. This is what you find in dictionaries. That's how kids or anybody that's trying to learn the English language learns how to pronounce the words. It's important to know
When is a vowel going to be short? When is a vowel going to be long? We know if a vowel is in final position, that vowel is going to say its name, right? That's now an open syllable because vowels do what to the mouth? They open the mouth. So if a word ends in a vowel, that's an open syllable word. If a word ends in a consonant, it's a closed syllable word because we know vowels open, consonants close. But using dictionaries with thesauruses to extract information and placing them on webs is excellent for students with dyslexia. Providing visuals is also very important. So I want us to go now to the first part of your secondary. Here. Look at something as simple as alphabetizing. Is this something that's really important for our students? Yes, it is.
I'm sorry, is that for secondary? I don't think we have one.
You didn't get the alphabetizing?
Do you guys?
No? Okay, then let's go to the next. No? You didn't get a little skunk there?
No, that's not on here.
No? Okay. Then let's go, did you get the English?
Yes.
Okay, let's go there. We said that dyslexia is stemming from decoding that leads to reading comprehension and encoding that leads to spelling, right? So we have to tackle that orthography. Here we tackled it using scientific spelling, but the older the kids get, they're going to want to know what happened. Did these irregular words that we were reading off, why are they irregular? They're going to want to know what the heck is going on. How am I going to learn all these things? So you talk about the structure of the language, the layers of the language. Look at the very bottom. 20 to 25% of Anglo-Saxon Old English words are made up of the English language. 60% are Latin. That's a lot. 10 to 12% are Greek words. And 3 to 5% are other, come from other parts of the language. So let's turn the page. On the next page, you have what's a visual, right? Did you have the visual? No? Okay, well I had a visual there for you all. The visual has to do with, because when you're talking about the structure of the English language or the history of the English language, you have to get the kids to understand where it's stemming from. It came from England and in Germany. But I want you to look at the different 3 periods. The 3 periods of English language are from Old English from 449 AD to 1066 AD. And this period began with the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes. They arrived in England. Is there any history people here? No, okay. The language of the Anglo-Saxons became the foundation of English. The language of the Vikings or the Old Norse and the Latin language also influenced this period of English. Let's go to the second period, which is the Middle English, 1066 AD to 1500 AD. The period began with the invasion of the Norman French. The French language helped the English language grow. The Latin language greatly influenced this period. Then we have modern English to 1500 AD, which is now to the present. This period was influenced by the Greek language. The exploration and colonization that occurred during this period brought new words from many different languages into the English language. How many of you have ever watched a spelling bee and you hear the child or the student say, what is the origin of the word?
Yes.
This is it. They need to know, is it Middle English? Is it Old English? Is it an Anglo-Saxon word? What is it? So now they understand how to spell it. So let's turn the page. And we're just going to go over quickly your word detective. And let's go over a history. A brief history here has to do with Anglo-Saxon. Anglo-Saxon words came into existence, and these were hunters and fishermen. They were basic words. Majority of one-syllable words are Anglo-Saxon words. But I want you to look at the clues of identifying English words. We know that words from 1 to 100 are Anglo-Saxon words, like 1, 20, 90, 100. Words 1 to 1,000 are Anglo-Saxon words. Look at the colors: red, brown, green. Those are basic colors. Those are Anglo-Saxon words. Y'all didn't get that? No, you didn't get that?
I thought you were reading the Greek history. We got the article, like the article on the Greek history, but not.
What did you get after that?
The worksheet.
Okay, that's okay. Stay at the clues. Go to the clue page because I'm going to give you some clues so we'll go over them. So now we know that what are Anglo-Saxon words? All the basic colors. We know that Anglo-Saxon words are 1 to what? 1,000. Those are Anglo-Saxon words. And that came in the period. Remember the period when the Anglo-Saxon words came. Also, basic colors. Words, colors like magenta and the new beige, chartreuse. Those are the chartreuse. Those are considered, French words. So those are not Anglo-Saxon words. Those are fancy words. What about basic animals? Pig, cow, fox, deer. Those are what? Anglo-Saxon words. Remember that I told you they were huntermen, they were fishermen, they wanted to survive. These were when the Vikings and the Norse came in. Names of farm and forest and ocean animals. Those are Anglo-Saxon words. And then we have parts of the body, like the head, the thumb, the forehead. All the outer parts of the body are Anglo-Saxon words. The inside of the body, intestines, what else are there? Skeleton, trachea, those come from Latin and Greek. Those are not Anglo-Saxon. All the outer part, the head, the leg, Anglo-Saxon words, okay? So go to your first clue. And if I was to ask you, give me the numbers that are Anglo-Saxon, what is your first clue?
1 to 1,000.
1 to 1,000.
1 to 1,000, very good. What about another clue? What would be clue number 2?
Basic colors.
Basic colors, right? Are any of those fancy colors going to be Anglo-Saxon words? No, that's an origin of the word. What about animals? What animals are Anglo-Saxon? Farm animals, pig. Even shrimp and lobster are considered Anglo-Saxon words because they come from the ocean. And what about the body parts? Which are the body parts that are Anglo-Saxon?
Outer parts.
Outer parts, not the inner parts, are Anglo-Saxon. Okay? There are also other ways of doing this. You can go into going into your French words, your Greek words, and then your Latin words. All those cognates that you have, like marvelous, maravilloso. Aren't those those are Latin words, right? What about brilliant? No, what brilliant be it? Nobody also know, right? No, fantastic, fantastico. There's your cognates, right? A lot of these words are Latin words. 60% of the English language is Latin. So, is there a lot of transitioning that we can do? Yes. Even if we don't know those irregular words, what do we have to do to learn them? Memorize them. The old-fashioned flashcards. I remember as a little girl, my mother used to put flashcards for us. Well, you know what? Those flashcards work. Bring them back out. Use them to introduce vocabulary. Whether it's math terminology, because math terminology can be very complicated for kids. But showing them what it is, getting them to understand it, or social studies terminology, science. Is there anybody here a science teacher? That terminology, those are robust vocabularies. So we need to be able to get them to understand the history of the English language and get them to understand why is it important? What makes a difference of absorbing oral language into our daily lesson? It's really important, especially for students with dyslexia. And visuals are key for our students as well. I also provided, I don't know if you have it in yours, I provided some strokes there in the elementary. Did you all get this one?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm really glad. Remember that we did the simulation activity with the handwriting? It's really important. If you notice, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 different approaches, different strokes to teach cursive. I highly recommend, especially if you're in middle and high school, teach the kids how to write cursive. 4 strokes does the trick. And secondary, what else did you all get for your secondary? Just that? Oh, did y'all get this one? Regular rule? No. Okay. There is something else that we do with our students. We try to get them to analyze words. We have what's called regular, rule, and irregular words. So I'm going to just throw some words out there and see if you can tell me if they're a regular word. That means, do they sound the way they spell? Are they irregular? They don't sound the way they spell. You have to memorize them. Or are they rule? Do I have to have a rule? Or is it a dropping rule, a changing rule? The first word is the word apple. What kind of a word do you think apple is?
Irregular.
Irregular. Think of the word apple. Would I have, is this going to follow a rule?
No.
It does.
Oh, yes.
It follows what's called the rabbit rule. Or we can also call it the doubling rule. Because we know if we have 2 syllables, am I good? No. Oh, 2 syllables, a short vowel, and a consonant vowel sound in the middle, I have to double that. That would be considered a rule word. What about the word grapes?
It's pretty basic, except for the E.
Does it sound the way it's spelled?
Yes.
Yeah. That's a regular word. I don't have to, I can sound it out. Good. A. We know that there's a silent, but it's A, consonant E pattern. It's got to be regular. What about the word peach? Think of this word. Would it be a regular or irregular word?
Irregular.
How, if I gave you the sound E, how would you spell it? Remember that we did that sound symbol association? Wouldn't it be E? How is it spelled here? E-A. E-A. So what do I know about this E-A?
Sounds like the double E.
It's what? It's going to be irregular.
Walking, the first one does the talking.
But here, how would I have done it? This is a 1-syllable base word. It would have been, it should have been spelled E-E, but it's not. This makes this word irregular. And let's try this word. This is the word berries. What kind of a word is berries?
It's a rule.
Who said rule? Good. I had to drop the Y and add what? I-E-S. There's a rule. Can the words get really complicated? Sure they can. What about the word orange? That's an E. What kind of a word do you think orange is? Does it sound the way it's spelled?
Yes.
We know O-R is or. Do we say orange? Is it orange? Irregular. It can't follow my rules. It's not gonna, not my rules, the English rules. It doesn't follow the rules.
It kind of sounds like it's E a little bit.
It does. It doesn't sound the way it's spelled. So if I was to sound it out for my students, would I be able to?
But there's people that say orange.
But I tested a student today, and he got the, because I did the spelling with him, and he got some of those wrong where the A sounded like an E.
E?
So
And
what
what
he
does
did,
this
he
G
wrote-
sound like here? They're gonna hear it the way, they're gonna spell it the way it
The way it
sounds.
sounds.
Look at this word. Something as basic as this. Is that irregular? Or does it sound the way it's spelled? It's irregular, because it sounds
Like a UH.
like this. T-H-U. It sounds like this. It sounds the. We don't say the. It's supposed to be pronounced the. Sounds there. What about the word said? How does it sound? Is that irregular or?
Irregular.
It sounds like this. Said. Does it sound the way it's spelled? No. That's how we know what irregular words are. Are there any questions? You all have been, yes, sir.
Can you know how, like, in this, like, certain dyslexic, is it like they write backwards, right?
Now they transpose words, but they're not flip. They're maybe the word on for no, or of for off. They can transpose the word,
Okay,
but
does
they're
that-
not flipping it.
How about when they type? Does that happen for them too?
No.
Really?
No, really.
It's only when they write.
I will tell you, the benefits of a computer for students with dyslexia are wonderful. Are there any questions? Well, y'all have been troopers, and go and enjoy your Friday. Thank you. Yes, I'll give you a copy.